Welcome back to the Fear and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies, and just a little bit of beer.
So kill the lights, grab a cold one, and join us as we dive into this mad world we love.
I'm Nick.
I'm Seamus.
And I'm Jamie.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You miss me.
Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
And as a reminder to all listening, if you want to help us to continue growing as a podcast, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on whichever streaming platform you use.
To stay up to date with us and all of our episodes, be sure to follow all of our socials. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Fear and Beer Pod.
Feel free to reach out to us. We love to interact with you all.
So I got a weird feeling that, man, we are getting close to some sort of announcement. And at the time of this recording, we don't have a announcement per se. We have a weird cryptic video tweet thing that Horror Nights likes to do because they're just dickheads. But we'll discuss that a little bit. But tonight, we are going to jump back into a series that we kind of started 3 weeks ago at this point, which is Remake, Sequel, or Pass, where we dive into some of the past Halloween Horror Nights houses year by year, briefly touch on the house itself with whatever we can find online, whether that's, hearsay, true synopses, or pictures, and we try to piece it together in a way that we can visualize if we should bring this back and remake this house, create a sequel to it, or just kind of leave it alone. So we are going to be jumping into HHN 11 and possibly going all the way up to 13 if time permits, because we found out last time that we could talk for hours on this stuff and it just dragged a lot. We got a lot of content out there when we could have spaced it out a little bit more. So we're going to each do one. We're going to go 11, 12, and 13 for sure. And then if time permits, we may reach up to 15, but we're going to kind of gauge it as we go along. But that's our main segment for today. And of course, we are joined with Seamus and Jamie, per usual, the hosts.
Hey.
Hello.
So, you all know, before we get into the segment, let's get into some beer. So this one doesn't necessarily tie in directly to anything. I'm sure as we go along, I could tie it into something, but it does have some sort of horrific image. So this is Make It Dangerous from Sideward Brewing. It's an English pale ale fermented on ex-bourbon barrel staves. So it's a 4.9% English pale ale. Sideward, of course, right in Orlando.
Yeah.
The image is super cool. I've heard of them. I don't know if I've had them or not.
I don't know.
There's been
this is also a collaboration, it says on the can, with Calusa Brewing from Sarasota.
That's cool.
Yeah, the number of breweries in our area has popped up. Like they've popped up relatively quickly in the last couple of years. So there's ones that I haven't even tried and or heard of that are like down the street. So I'm like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Probably should start giving some of these guys a try. But
yeah, and this image has like this gnarly bear who has like rips in its flesh, so you can see the bones in it. It's just pretty cool. So that's what I'm gonna dive into tonight.
Well, do you want me to go next, Jamie? Usually you go second, but
no. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm going back to the Angry Chair. Well,
nice.
Again,
nice.
But
they do great stuff, though.
It's okay. I missed an episode, so I've had a little bit of time. So people have been missing it. So this one actually is, I think it's again, like you just said, it's not really related to anything horror, but the imagery is pretty scary looking. So that works. It's from the from one of their, we'll call it their Easter series. So they, I don't know if this is, they might do this annually. I'm not really sure, but this one is called Yellow Puffs, and the image is actually a monstrously large yellow puff, and it looks scary and demon-like, and it's eating people. And you know what? If something's gonna take over the world, I'd rather it be gigantic marshmallow peeps than anything else. So that would be kind of cool. But the can,
you're not wrong.
The can does say if you've tried the OG version Purple Puffs, so they've had like their first version of this was called Purple Puffs. This one's Yellow Puffs, which seems more. You would think yellow would have been the OG because yellow puffs are kind of like everybody thinks about on Easter, right? But you'll probably want to try this one. Yellow Puffs is sticky sweet and inspired by a treat that is usually put into pastel baskets filled with fake grass left behind by a bunny that hides eggs. That's not weird at all. But it is a. And I had it
That
pulled
sounds
up here.
good.
It
I
is a
like
Berliner. Yeah, it's a Berliner Weisse. So it's sour. It has passion fruit, guava, and marshmallow in it. Obviously, hence why it's a Puffs beer.
That sounds good.
I have had it already once, so it's not like this is new to me, but it is really, really good. So if
You liked it, yeah?
yeah, if you're into sours, Angry Chair, again, I've said it before. I've spoken their or yelled their praises to the world many a times on this podcast, but I'll say it again. Angry Chair. If you're looking for world class stouts or world class sours, Angry Chair is a place to check out. They're in Tampa. Great brewery. So I'm really excited to have this again. So that leaves us with what you're drinking tonight, Miss Jamie.
Yeah, you guys always have such detailed responses. Mine's definitely not going to be as cool, but mine doesn't really correlate with the episode too much as well. I feel like it's harder for me finding like sours and stuff like that and just the limited places that I've been shopping. But I picked this up the other day after work at Half Barrel Project, one of our favorite spots. And it's from Prairie Artisan Ales, which I've had some stuff from them before, and it was really tasty. This one's called Watermelon Girlfriends. This one's for the girlies. It's a sour ale with watermelon, sea salt, orange, lemon, and lime, and it has a 5% ABV. And then on the can, it's got a big little watermelon on the front sitting on a little chair with a bunch of little ladies pampering her. So, yeah. This one sounded pretty good, though. I like the sea salt inclusion in it. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So I also want to steal something from somebody else. So
steal something.
Yeah. So
we are a thieving podcast.
Absolutely. No honor amongst thieves. Dave Portnoy, Barstool Sports, when he does his pizza challenges, he does the one bite, whatever. I think what we should start instituting in our beer aspect is, once we pour them, we do a one sniff, one sip. And we can kind of give you the instant reaction, and then we'll move on to the next stuff.
Okay, I like that.
It's a fair assessment off of initially just
one
sniff, one sip.
Dave is too big. He won't even notice we stole something from him.
No chance.
He doesn't know.
All right, so I'm going to crack my beer. We can pour it out. We can do our one sniff, one sip, and we'll see where this leads us. I thought of that the other time, and then I forgot about it last week. So I just was like, you know what? Now that we all have very different beers, we can kind of institute that in this aspect.
Oh, this is so thick.
All right, so let's dive in. It's got that Yingling color, very dark brown.
Well, I can smell mine from about like a foot and a half away. So,
all right, so
good.
First smell, I'm not really feeling it.
Yeah, so that one sniff I got, it could be me. Obviously, I'm getting a little bit of the bourbon, but I'm getting a very nutty smell. And let's get in for this one sip. Let's see what we got here. For it being bourbon barrel, it's just fermented on ex-bourbon barrel. You don't get a lot of it. It has that Yingling style taste almost. That it threw me off being an English pale ale, because it has almost like a lager style taste to it. But I actually really like this so far off that one sip. What'd you guys pick up off your sips?
I was gonna say, Seamus, I forgot you've had it before, so you like it.
It's okay. Sorry, I walked away for a minute. So you want to sniff on mine? So my sniff, like I said, I can smell it from like a foot and a half away. It's really, really, it has that orangey, citrusy, but not in the sense that like you get with like a New England IPA or a hazy IPA. That's a different type of citrus smell. This is like getting squirted in the face with like an orange or a grapefruit.
Yeah.
It smells awesome, and obviously the first sip again is phenomenal. It's probably one of the better sours I've had recently. Again, Angry Chair, their sours, they really don't do anything wrong with their sours. Their sours are always phenomenal. So not a whole lot else to say other than, obviously at this point you're gonna have to wait till next Easter to get this particular one, but they have sours all the time all year round, so it's worth picking up and trying if you can find their stuff.
That sounds good. I'm gonna have to try and find that one, or we'll have to go to Angry Chair soon because that sounds really good.
I'll send y'all a picture so you can see what it looks
Yeah,
like.
right. See what we're working with. Yeah, so this one I don't really get too much of the orange or lemon or the sea salt, unfortunately. It's more of like it's probably like your typical sour. I don't really get too much hint of the watermelon until the aftertaste, but that first like sniff was definitely more of like the lime, pungent watermelon-y flavor, but I wish you got a little bit more of that, but it's not bad. Not too shabby.
All right. So into the next segment before our main segment, our speculation scuttlebutt. So some stuff that's been coming out as of late. There's a couple things we can dive into. Let's recap a little bit. Let's do like a little preview or a little bit of a rewind, because Seamus, you weren't with us last week when we discussed our speculation map version 2.0. So if you want, I guess I'll just kind of open the floor for you for sort of a free discussion if you want to give your thoughts on that map that we got from Horror Night Nightmares.
Do you want me to give you my insight on that map? I'm trying not to make enemies with people, and I don't know if I can honestly. Well, let's put it this way: I'm not. The nicest thing I can say about it is I'm not excited.
That's kind of what I left it at. I hit it pretty hard a little bit last time.
I don't want to. Again, I don't want to poo-poo something that isn't confirmed. Obviously, I don't want to poo-poo things that may not be what we currently think they're going to be. The map is obviously just speculation, but at the same time, being that everybody likes to say, it's speculative, but it tends to be right more than it's wrong. So I worry that if this is, say, 80% right, I'm not super pumped. Again, now that all the originals are going to like picture, like they're doing pictures, they're not giving us titles, which is weird, but I guess is kind of cool in the sense that like they don't immediately tell you specifically what's going on. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't know which one made me gag worse when I first looked at it. What, either the dragons and castles or the Demon Slayer one. I saw those two and I was like, oh, why?
Oh boy.
And look, Demon Slayer fans, listen. I don't like monsters either. It's okay. I'm not attacking you specifically. It's just I don't know how well anime flies here. I know, I get it. There's a huge anime population out there. People here love anime, and I respect that you like it. That's fine. Everyone can like what they like. I don't know how it flies as far as like a pretty mainstream horror event. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like, if you take one of the 10 houses and you make it Demon Slayer, outside of the Demon Slayer fans, which I, of course, judging by Twitter, there are many in the community. Outside of you guys, no one's gonna care. Like, I hate to say it, like, yeah, you'll have like 20-minute waits. Good for you. You can go through your house 1,000 times, but it's just, I feel like it's a waste of a house, and that really worries me. Is that if that truly is real, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. I feel like it's not for me. Really isn't for me. And the fact that we'd be getting that and a Universal Monsters house, obviously, again, like, there's already 2 there that I'm like not going to be super wild about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to overjudge it because it's not something that's been confirmed yet. I don't want to overjudge any of the houses yet. But I don't know. To me, like, dragons and castles are not scary. Dungeons and Dragons is not scary. And I get that, like, there could be something cool they could do with it, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think, honestly, to me, I think it's just, that's a little, it's just them being cheeky in the sense that, like, ooh, castles and dragons, ooh, Harry Potter, like, and it's just them being like kind of wink, wink, like it's never gonna happen. we just want to make sure we want you dorks to freak out about it. Is basically what it was. That's the way I look at it. But who knows? We'll see what happens. But hey, as long as some people are happy, then I guess they're doing their job. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in that wait and see period because it did not excite me at all.
Nope, not one bit.
So let's move on to. I mean, I haven't really seen much new rumors really surface. It's kind of been quiet, but the official Halloween Horror Nights page, Orlando, did post out a little video earlier, and it is just a screen recording of a text message thread where one person goes, "You think the legend of HHN is true?" Person responds, "Yes." The other person goes, "That bad things happen to those who go alone?" Question mark. Can we just let that fucking slogan go?
Yeah, can we
I
get rid of that?
I was just gonna say,
So
I
stupid.
I mean, it was cool the first time, but then when you brought it back
No.
again, it was like, okay.
Like again, 1 year, never go alone. Cool. It's fine. Whatever. It's just a random phrase. It's kind of a throwaway. Whatever. But then like consistently bringing it back, like just
No, well, it's like Hollywood. Like, once they have a hit, once they have something, they kind of stick with it.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like it's the meme of Steve Buscemi holding the skateboard, like just trying to keep fitting in with the young kids. But regardless, the person goes, "That's right," and then the other person says, "What makes you so sure?" And then the person responds with a bunch of hieroglyphics. It looks like 4 words, and in a matter of, I think, 30 minutes, people have solved it. Supposedly, I mean, it's no confirmation, but they do line up with, the lettering and stuff like that. I mean, where the fuck were these people around when the Zodiac Killer was running around? Because they could have solved the thing in like a matter of seconds.
That's exactly
What's that? What happened? Oh,
The cipher text thing that they
the nerds
Yeah.
on Twitter who like see
Robert-
something and immediately know exactly what it is every single time.
I give him props. I was struggling. I didn't even know where to begin,
Nerds.
and I was
I'm
like,
just
"They
gonna
got it
assume
that,
back
but hold on.
quick?"
So like I was trying, I couldn't figure out. Like, do you know what those runes or symbols were? Like, do we know what
No.
that is?
It's just maybe their own. It could have been a real, cipher language, but I think it was just kind of their own. They just kind of created their own cipher. Said,
Right. So that's
A
the
is
thing.
this,
Like,
B
I
is this, C
honestly,
is this.
I hope it's just some D nozzle who's just like, I'm gonna put something out there and see if everybody believes me, and I guarantee that's what it was. Like,
I mean,
It lines up though. I was surprised. I was like,
And that's the thing, is
counting it. I was like,
is-
damn, it does.
it does line up because there are repeating symbols.
Yeah.
So I guess you can attack the vowels. You can look at 2-letter words, what are most common, and kind of go from there. Not to tangent, but I was trying to solve it a little bit because I just watched Zodiac a couple weeks ago, and that's his thing. Is he's like, well, what's one word the Zodiac's going to say? Kill. All right, find 4-letter words in here that have the double ending.
Yeah.
So now you
Yeah.
have ILK, and you're on your way. So it's feasible that people solved it, but it was pretty quick.
It worked for the San Francisco Police Department or where the fuck it
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
Because they didn't catch the motherfucker, did they?
Yeah,
This was your shot, Nick.
I bet
You've
this
been
was
prepping
Robert
for this.
Graysmith.
No, it
Robert
wasn't even-
Graysmith, the Boy Scout.
Right, but to me, it's just it's funny, the whole cipher thing. It's
Yeah,
like,
so
you don't catch killers unless they fuck up, which is typically how it happens.
So the translation supposedly was, "My harvest is inescapable." So it does line up. So this kind of led people down a couple different avenues of thought.
But again, aren't you just kind of like, really?
Yeah.
Or is that
So-
just me?
I was only like that because I wish I would have figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
I'm
lie.
just-
I was like, damn.
I'm very curious. This could
If
go
that's
3
even
ways.
it, if that's even
Yeah.
it,
This could go 4 ways. And I'll go with what I think the most logical one is that this really means nothing. I don't know if this is going to tie into anything. I don't think that their first announcement of the year. I know Chucky was announced, but that was 2022. We're now 23. I would be hard pressed to believe that it would, because Harvest isn't related to any of the IPs that we're speculating. More logically, it would be an original. So it would be hard pressed for me to believe that they would throw some
An
original
original.
concept stuff out before major IPs, because
Yeah.
that's not what draws people. So that's my first of the three. I guess the second one, most obvious, maybe just some kind of tie-in with Pumpkin Lord. Wicked Growth 2 was speculated on the map last year for one version, so that, it could be, I guess, Pumpkin Lord learned a new rune language. He must have wandered over from his post up in the front and wandered over to Conjure the Dark and checked out their ruins and learned how to text.
They gotta milk that teat while they can. So
Yep, the sweet pumpkin teat. So it could be Pumpkin Lord related, possibly. One other one is Harvest. My harvest is inescapable. That could be a callback to Nathaniel Crow, who we did see in the Wicked Growth House and is part of the HHN lore in the past. So essentially, he was a scrapped icon, and the story of it, and I'll sum it up pretty quickly, was that Jack the Clown found his land, and he was just a farmer. He was trying to plant pumpkins. Jack the Clown convinces him that his land is just useless, dead. He can't grow anything, whatever. He convinces him to purchase the land where he can host his Carnival of Carnage, which is kind of a tie-in to the podcast Static video where the lady was wearing the 25 shirt. So that's a little bit of a connection there. He convinces him to put his carnival there. Nathaniel Crow sees all the stuff. He goes in, he sees the guests, and the guests of the circus never return. So Jack's killing them. But Nathaniel doesn't die, and he asks him why. Jack says, "You'll see." Eventually, Jack packs up the circus, and they head out. And at this point, Nathaniel Crow starts seeing various icons, and I think just like recites a poem or sees a poem. And eventually, the ground starts sprouting pumpkins, and the vines kind of pull him in and hold him down, and then crows come in, attack him, pick him, kill him, and he slowly turns into a jack-o'-lantern with a candle in his mouth, and he is the embodiment of Halloween. So it could be a Nathaniel Crow tie-in, where, his harvest, the scares on the harvest, we saw him in Wicked Growth, it ties into there. So it could be some sort of Nathaniel Crow revenge, which could tie into Oddfellows Circus if we were to have that, because that could be on the same grounds that Nathaniel Crow's land was, and it could be a case of Jack killed me. Oh, Jack also killed me. Let's go try to kill Jack. I don't know. That one seems a little far-fetched, but there's tie-ins. And then the final one that I think is probably the most out there is somebody was connecting this to the house. Forget the exact name, but the orphanage, Ashes to Ashes, I believe it was. The Cindy Kane tie-in, because the orphanage was called the Harvest Orphanage, or asylum, or whatever the termage that they use, but the name was Harvest involved. So if it's a locked-in style orphanage, is hard to escape. It's some kind of Cindy Kane tie-in. Those are the four rumors of discussion at this point, but again, they're just that. They're rumors based off of somebody potentially solving a cipher. That seems a little far-fetched to me. What do you guys think on any of those?
I'm still leaning towards it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I think the Horror Nights, or just Orlando's social media team, they're the best trolls, the best kind of troll, and they know that they can set their community off by just like farting on camera, and people will literally read into that like way too far. And then again, this is not me picking on us or the community. I think it's just, to me, it's funny, and it's fun because it's fun to speculate. So I get it. I just think that we tend to read into things way too hard, and like, because again, I read it and initially was like, oh, come on, can we just please stop
do something
rehashing the same crap over and over again? Like, I totally again, I like Pumpkin Lord, I really do, and I like that theme. Like, I like the Scarecrow theme, but at the same time, it's like, be original, please. Like, we need to make sure that we have some original ideas, and and not just relive the same 5 things over and over again, even though we're doing an episode of,
I was gonna say, coming on a perfect
houses,
episode date.
but you know what I'm saying. Like,
but yes, you need to stop rehashing it. So, if you had a scare zone, look at Dead Man's Pier. We had Dead Man's Wharf and we made a house out of it. Perfect. I don't ever need another Dead Man's house.
At least not like
or
the next 5 years.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Bring it back in 10
was
years.
great.
That would make sense, but
That's like if they did a variation of Scary Tales every year. It's just, yes, you can change it up a little bit,
Mhm.
but why? You have a true proven track record of 31 years so far of like coming up with amazing concepts. So your people can do it. So just let them cook.
right. And keep in mind, they already are kind of doing this with certain things. Like we're getting a Monsters house.
Yep.
Or at least we assume we get a Monsters house every goddamn year now. And again, it's not that I don't like monsters specifically. Like I think they can do good things with them. They can make interesting houses, but it's like, do we really have to go to that well every year just because you own the property?
Yeah.
So,
And look,
Jamie,
I
what do
get
you
it.
think of? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No. I was just gonna say. I mean, Jamie is a perfect example of the people in the community that are like, yes, no, that's exactly what I want them to do. And
It's just
hey,
too
by all
good
means,
for them not to. It's just too easy for them not to use it, and they know people. Well, most people, Seamus at least, they know most people enjoy it or like seeing some of those like creatures and monsters brought to life. Don't get me wrong, it can get a little repetitive, but I'm one of those people.
But it's also too like monsters aside, whatever, that's fine. Like because it's different enough. There's different characters, but if if this is a Pumpkin Lord in that world, it's that's an original concept that's just kind of been pulled out. So they gave us Wicked Growth, and it was like the pitcher coming out and throwing 100-mile-per-hour heaters, like they're killing it. And then we get Pumpkin Lord the next year, and he's just like farting and burping, and it's like, all right, maybe just take a break. We'll kind of forget this one ever happened, and we can revisit this in a little bit. But I'm in that boat too, where it's like, just because I love something doesn't mean I need it every year or a different variation of it. So I think I'm on board as well. Like I said earlier, and Seamus agreed. I think that this, time will tell. We'll see if there's a payoff on this, but I don't know if it necessarily is going to be anything related to that. I could be proven wrong tomorrow, as they will probably drop an announcement. But what do you think, Jamie, about the different theories, I guess?
I don't know. I'm so gullible that I want to believe it. I was like, oh, this has definitely got to mean something. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I was trying to figure out what it was. And then, as much as I don't want to think it's trolling, then again, I think it could possibly be them just doing it just to get everyone like hyped up, maybe like prepped for an announcement, just to like give us something. But then again, they've been doing that the last couple times too. We still haven't gotten anything. So, but I mean, kind of like how you guys were saying, the repetitiveness of like bringing things back that we've already had. I mean, with reading what it could have been deciphered as, do you not think that they would be trying to like make him, because like people were talking about like a new icon and like all this kind of stuff? Obviously it wouldn't be a new kind, but like his like this year, because like last year he was there, but like he didn't really get his like spot in the spotlight kind of thing.
I think their opportunity to do that would have been last year.
That's what I was saying too. I don't think they would have waited to do it until now. I think they would have done it up last year, but I feel like maybe some stuff with the weekend, like they couldn't have dropped out with that. They had already announced the Black Phone and Blumhouse and stuff like that. So I don't know. But that's just a theory, honestly. That's the only other thing I could have really thought of.
Yeah, I think last year should have been his year, and I think I think the ball was dropped a little bit in that aspect.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, but well, time will tell. I mean,
I gotta be right about something for once, but I don't think this will be it.
It's just, and that's the thing too, that even if these theories are right, I'm really curious. Like if it plays out and it's like, oh, this is Nathaniel Crow related, it's going to tie in with the Oddfellow house. Right. I'd be very curious as to why they chose to do that one first, especially when it's like.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even if they are just, like, even if they are just like messing around or whatever, like, why would they like bring that up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So time will tell. An announcement is imminent. I think it's going to be, I honestly think it could be either tomorrow or next Thursday. There is a HHN panel planned for Spooky Empire I think,
Yeah.
on that Friday. So
Mhm.
if they dropped this the day before, they'd have some cool stuff to talk about. I remember last year at the panel, they
Yep.
didn't announce anything, but they showed us some stuff from the monster's house.
Yes.
So
Which is
like
really cool.
it makes sense to kind of lean into that. So I think we definitely get an announcement before next Friday. I feel it. I think it's a Thursday thing. I think it drops either tomorrow or the Thursday following, but
Yeah.
time will tell. So let's move on into our main segment. So HHN houses from 11 through potentially 15. We're definitely going to get through 13 tonight, but time will tell if we get all the way through, because these are the years that we're starting to get more elaborate houses. We're starting to get more houses. So let's dive on in. So I'm going to be discussing HHN 11. Now, this is a very tough year. So obviously the year was 2001. Obviously, this is after the 9/11 attacks. So a lot of stuff had to change, because this back then, it wasn't running through September. It started at October 5th. So a lot of last minute kind of changes to the overall feel. This is the year that Eddie was supposed to be the icon, and then they decided to bring Jack the clown back. So where some stuff did get shuffled around here. So I think this event may have had some of that leak into the houses. So first off, one of the houses, and this was at the Earthquake Q, and this was The Mummy Returns, The Curse Continues. So this was originally supposed to be called The Mummy Returns Temple of Terror. And of course, with terror kind of filling up all the news at that time, it was rightfully changed to The Curse Continues. So this was based off of the Mummy movies, the Brendan Fraser movies. So this came out right along the time that the sequel came out. And the description of this is: based on the hit movie, venture through a maze of tomb-like corridors and dark taverns in the Temple of the Scorpion King, where danger lurks around every corner. So you would enter this house, and there was a big metal statue, and supposedly this had a lot of characters, and they were just kind of like hiding in a grassy wall. They had a sarcophagus that would kind of lean forward and get you. There was a lot of mummies. There was pharaohs that would chase you around. Supposedly there was some moving floor aspects installed into this house, and there was at the end a giant 7-foot tall sphinx that would attack the guests on their way out. Now, there's not a whole lot of pictures other than just people in mummy costumes. So I guess we can go into our aspect on this house, because that's really all we got. I'm disappointed there's no Brendan Fraser characters. I was hoping that there would be in there. But so let's get into our discussion, I guess. So would this be a remake, a sequel, or just pass and let this be one of the houses at 11?
I feel like I didn't really have to think about this one too hard, but I'll probably have to pass on this one.
Yeah.
Only because it was already a sequel.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, just because it's based off of a sequel of the IP. I mean, we get the Mummy pretty consistent now throughout the Universal monsters. I mean, maybe if it was just a straight up Brendan Fraser Mummy, like I would say remake it. I don't need a sequel. I just want a remake of just straight up the Mummy. But since it's not that, I'm good with kind of letting this one just sit in the past.
Because didn't in the last episode we talked about that they had a mummy house, like just straight the
Yeah,
mummy house?
it was it was year 10.
Yeah.
Or not year
so
10. Well, yeah, I mean
that makes sense then. Yeah.
HHN 10, because that was the year that, or year before. I don't know. One of the years, whenever the Mummy was like that event's kind of like icon, because the movie had come out or whatever. But,
so it kind of already got its spotlight.
Yeah, I'm good with letting that one.
I agree with both of you. Just let it pass.
That was easy.
Outside of a straight up remake of that first Mummy house, I would say just let it go.
Yeah.
We get enough monsters at this point.
So moving to Soundstage 22, we have a house called Pitch Black And it's described as a mysterious zone of darkness has appeared, causing weird disturbances. It's up to you to investigate. ... If you dare.
Ooh.
So this one seemed like it just sounds like a whole lot of nothing is going on in this one, but it seems like from what I'm reading, it was a pretty well recepted house.
I bet it was good.
So this supposedly, and there's not a lot of like detailed, full on like room 1, room 2, but it was kind of a trip down a lot of just painted black hallways, and there was just a lot of sound effects, noises, and like strobe lights. So it kind of seemed like a brainwashing sort of experiment in my mind. It's like they're trying to tap into your psyche, but it's a very touchy feely kind of thing. So it was a carpeted walls covered in slime, cobwebs, inflatable objects in walls, hot rooms, cold rooms, wet rooms, hard floors, soft floors, bouncy floors. It's all in the pitch black. So it's kind of just playing off of
your senses.
Darkness aspect and playing off of just all your other senses. There's not a lot of characters in this room. They've played children's voices throughout this, and there was someone, according to this article, there was a pitch black room with the sound of someone retching. So I think it's just like it just kind of plays off of
now that's scary
your senses. This was a very popular house, it says. They speculate that there was only like 7 to 10 characters in the whole house, and they only had like 3 different boo holes. So it's kind of just a very basic concept. Obviously, it has nothing to do with that Vin Diesel Pitch Black movie. But what do we think on Pitch Black? Now, it's interesting because it's not really a story I guess it kind of takes sequel out of it, since there's not really a story. It's almost like, would you want to remake this concept of sensory work, I guess? What do you guys think?
Yes and no. The easy answer is I want a house where they make it as dark as possible. I mean, one of my more recent, or not want to say recent, but like one of my more favorite encounters at like a horror event once was there was a house at Spooky World a few years ago, or however many years ago, that I was there that night, and the house was literally designed to be like as dark as possible, and they gave you a glow stick and said, "Here you go." And
that's fun.
That to me is more of an experience than your standard house. Now, granted, most of the houses that we go through now, the ones that I go through, and I enjoy them for various reasons. I enjoy them for their artistic value. I appreciate the work that it goes into building and completing the sets. I appreciate the work that the scare actors put in, but none of it really like scares me. I don't go through it to get like shocked and scared. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I know for a fact that I'm going to go through and they might get me here and there as far as like jump scares are concerned, if they're done right and done well. But I don't typically go through a haunted house to get that feeling of dread. But on the other hand, if you put me in a situation like that where you make it like you deprive a lot of my ability to see or comprehend like things that are going on around me, will disorient me, and I like that feeling more because that makes you feel almost more uneasy, fills you with dread, fills you with a little bit more unwariness. So when you take away that sense of sight, it makes it a lot more interesting. Now, I don't know how that works with rules now and safety regulations and stuff, and I don't know how dark can they really make the house, but if it was something like that, I would say, I'd be on board 100%, bring it back. But I think it's more bringing back that type of experience and not necessarily whatever the house was themed around or based on.
Yeah, it's more implementing that style of scare into something. It's sort of something that we saw a little bit to a degree with Black Phone during that long,
Yeah,
kind of tarped out
or that
hallway.
part in the
Yep.
that part in Hill House where the dark long hallway
Yes.
where they like
And then
deadened the sound and
Yep.
made it pitch black.
And in Hellblock too, kind of like the last part of Hellblock when you're walking through the
With all the lights.
black hallways. But honestly, that part probably got me the most in the house. There was some good little. There was a boo hole right there with like Nosferatu kind of looking creatures and stuff like that hidden, and it was pretty scary.
Yeah, I'm on that in between that Seamus brought up too, because as a whole, this house is like, I like this style of scaring, and I think it can and should be implemented a lot of other places. But is it like enough to just? Is it up to today's HHN standards to open up a house with no real story or characters and just have like a sensory experiment? I guess.
I kind of like it. I
think they could do
really
it.
like it. I think
I
they
don't
could too.
I don't think the house has to necessarily have like a specific
Connection.
story or any type of connection to any real existing characters or anything like that. You can just do a sensory or a fear-based house specifically on people's fears.
Yeah. So I would vote in the remake. I would like to see this house remade with today's technology.
Definitely. Pitch Black, like dark, is like I wouldn't say I'm not afraid of many things. I can't say that because I do get scared, but the dark is something that will always probably scare me. And I think that mixed with like the different like sound effects they could do, and it's like the anticipation of like waiting for something to like jump out of you and not being able to see it. It's scary. And I think this could be really good. And they could probably have people in the house if they were to ever remake this, because I think it'd be really cool, honestly, now that we're talking about it. They could have people blended in black jumpsuits, and the walls are like how they have like the green screen suit kind of things like that blended in with the walls.
The guy from The Weekend house.
Yeah, right, exactly, like the wallpaper mixed in. But yeah, I think that would be really scary, and just have them not even jump out at you, because even if you couldn't see them, but like make sounds in your ear when you walk by, or just like little things like that, stomping, whatever. Just I think it would be really cool.
What you can't see is typically scarier than what you can. So
that is true.
Yeah. So let's move on now to a house that has a lot of descriptions. So I'll try to run through this quickly. The house is called Run. This house went through major changes based off the events I talked about earlier. This was supposed to be Eddie's house. This was going to be his icon house, his introduction, but Eddie was scrapped from the event. Therefore, he was scrapped from the house altogether. Now, this house was described as become a guest contestant in a diabolical new game where there are no questions, no prizes, and only one rule: try to escape without losing your mind. So essentially, this was just this thrown together game show with chainsaw crazy people, and your object is to literally run, to get out. From what I did see is that this house, and this would never be able to fly today just because of crowds, but this was apparently, it had a lot of moving parts and dead ends. So it was like, we refer to, sometimes houses are referred to as mazes. This was an actual maze where you could go into a dead end, have to turn around, go the other way. There was walls that were made of mattresses and chain link fences, and they were made so that they could be moved, and guests could just kind of go around in a long time because they would change the direction that you had to go. It was a lot of chainsaw people throughout this whole house. It was very dark, and it did play with a little bit of a sensory where you would probably be able to see other pathways of other people. But with ramps and stuff like that, it looked like they were a lot lower. So it looked like you were higher in some aspects of the house. They would separate guests. Like, so you all end at the same point, but sometimes you would be separated from a group. So if like the three of us went in and one had to go one way, the other had to go another way. And that's, hopefully you meet up at the same time, but I mean, you'd all end at the same point. So that aspect it's just so brilliant, but it's just not something you could do at today's haunt standards at HHN. There's just too many people. There is a giant whole treatment. We don't have to get into the full treatment, but that's pretty much the extent of the house at that aspect, where it's just that game show aspect. You go through, your entryway, the games begin, and they kind of send you off literally like, oh, run, time to go.
Huh.
You move through a cave area, you go through the basement, you do a there's I'm trying to like skim through this thing because there's a whole bunch of scenes, but there's 11 scenes in this thing.
Huh.
So just on the concept alone, what are we thinking? I mean, just picture a violent, almost like Saw. Like
Right.
I think
your
given
object
enough
is to get out or you
time,
die.
given enough
Mhm.
time to design it and come up with a cohesive idea,
Mhm.
I think it could work as like a remake.
Mhm.
It sounds kind of like The Running Man, which is I know it was a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know I think it was based on a book or something. I forget exactly. And someone's gonna be like, "You're an idiot. It's this," but like, it's definitely based on something. But it sounds like that same idea where like a dude is like brought on to like this violent, nihilistic end of the world like game show, and they have to like fight to survive. Kind of like Squid Games almost in some way.
Kind of
Uh,
like that, yeah. Yep.
I could see them finding a way to do it. Obviously, it can't necessarily be as chaotic as this one was. It
Mhm.
has to be more straightforward. It has to have an actual like path you follow, but you can make it work in the sense that like they give you a feeling of going through various dangerous, you know, uh activities you have to complete to actually get out to get out of the house. I think that'd be kind of cool.
And this
Mhm.
house does have 2 sequels, one at HHN 16 in
Mhm.
Run Hostile Territory, and it does have a sequel at 25 with a Run Blood, Sweat, and Fears.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll get into those houses in a later episode, but
Mhm.
yeah, what do you think about doing Run? So Seamus, you're kind of leaning towards sequel or
I
remake?
mean, knowing that they've done like 2 or 3 sequels, I mean, do I need it? No, but I mean, I think it would. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they were like, "Hey, we're gonna remake Run for the new audience,"
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
Because at this point, this event's 22 years old now, so
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so that was my whole thing when you had mentioned this. I was like, "Oh, Run," because I had known that they had previously or after done a couple sequels to it and stuff like that. So, the game show type concept, I really do enjoy, and I went, to 25 when they did have the Run, Blood, Sweat, and Fear house, but I unfortunately didn't get to go in it, or if I did, I don't remember it because I have a terrible memory. But, personally, I don't need this one again. It's had its shot. It's had a couple more sequels to it. I think it's done its job
Yeah.
for this.
I would
Yeah.
say I would be interested to remake just the original, and I'm sure when we discuss the sequels, maybe I'll forget I said that because I'll probably be okay with the sequels. But I think remaking this house would be cool because you could revamp and, like you said, that game show aspect of it's really
Yeah.
cool. I think if you took a look at this one and redid just this house,
Mhm.
I think it would be very fun and interesting to kind
Yeah.
of dive into that one again.
It would be something different. I wish I would have done it.
Yeah. So next up is Scary Tales. So the first iteration of this franchise, I guess, at Horror Nights.
Mhm.
This was also in Soundstage 22, which was where Pitch Black was hosted. This one, and again, this one was originally supposed to be called Terrorland. And again, because of the terrorist attacks, took terror out of there and just called it Scary Tales.
Oh.
So this one was a very popular one. This actually, I believe, was awarded the first ever House of the Year award. There was a sequel to this the following year, Scary Tales 2. But this
Mhm.
one, the story is that this house has a bunch of fairy tale characters, and they were locked inside of Carnival for 30 years as children. During this time, they mutated and morphed into terrifying adult versions of themselves and seek revenge with the help of Jack. They are now able to take their vengeance out on the innocent. And there's 2 settings. There's a Mad Hatter room and an Alice's toy room. There is, in this house, the Queen of Hearts, Evil Queen, Bridge Troll, Big Bad Wolf, Pinocchio, Mad Hatter, some of Alice's toys, Straight Jacket Monster, and a couple other just randos that are thrown in there. So you do enter this with a narrator. So I can picture it almost as like the Revenge of the Tooth Fairy style house, where there's a soundtrack, but there's an overlaying narrator bringing you through this craziness. So you are brought in through a kind of the intro, but then you go through a revolving tunnel, and it was all painted black and white checkerboards, and this was kind of bringing you into Alice in Wonderland, a la the rabbit hole style thing. And then you entered a small room with a little girl holding a teddy bear, and there's unknown names in words printed everywhere. After that, you would go through Alice's toy room. Then you would enter the Mad Hatter's tea party room. And then the Mad Hatter would attack guests. And then the next room, it would lead you into the Queen of Hearts styled room, where she would just do nursery rhymes to play off of that Scary Tales vibe, where you do Three Blind Mice, stuff like that. So, and then you get into the Pinocchio's room. There's a huge puppet of Pinocchio, and it was all like PSI pumps, so it's not an actual character, not exactly full-on mechanical, but it's that kind of half-seas. You would go out the back door of Grandma's house. That's where you get a little boo hole with some Wizard of Oz style characters here with a scarecrow. And then the next room used tilted walls and floors to really disorient you. A lot of fog and strobe lights. And this is where you would sort of exit the house with one last jump scare with Alice holding a chainsaw.
Oh, God.
So, Scary Tales. Now, these are the years now leading up to the event where these are going to get a little bit trickier because they do have sequels. So I guess we sort of have to, just imagine we're making a sequel just to this. We're kind of forgetting the other ones. It's almost like how Halloween has so many different timelines. Like we're going to create a new branch here. So I guess a remake would be with these same characters. Sounds very Alice in Wonderlandy. Sequel would be doing what the other one's done, but better. And then Leave It Alone is just kind of leaving this one to be. So what do we think about Scary Tales first iteration?
I like Scary Tales. Honestly, the more and more talking about it, sorry, I was reading something real quick. No, but I like Scary Tales, honestly. It reminds me, I didn't realize how similar it was with the Alice in Wonderland theme, because then again in the later years we had the Asylum in Wonderland, which I had always wanted to do. So I would like to see a remake of the original Scary Tales house with these characters. I think that would be really cool, and it would still give me that storybook-esque theme that I like, but still with the Alice in Wonderland that I had wanted to see. So I think this would be a pretty cool remake.
And I'm searching something right now.
Were you looking up?
Yes, so it is. No. So this is. I was searching if it was, and it looks like it was. So Alice in Wonderland is public domain, so that's why we've probably seen her in various iterations.
Gotcha.
The illustrations came into public domain in 1964. So for a while, it's been.
I didn't know that.
Public domain. So that's kind of why I was much like the Winnie and the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Right.
Once it becomes public domain, you can. That's why this is deemed an original and not
that's
using
pretty cool.
Intellectual property.
Right.
So that makes sense as to why they went so heavy in that. Yeah, it'd be cool to remake this one. We make the rules here, so I guess we can bend it. I don't know if I would come almost hybrid it a little bit with titles, because I wouldn't, it's not necessarily Scary Tales as much as it is Alice in Wonderland related. And obviously we already have the Asylum, with Alice related in the title. So maybe I'd morph the title a little bit. So it's, like Alice in Horrorland or something like that, and really play off of that. And, the Scary Tales ones that came later, we'll discuss those shortly. But yeah, no, I'm good with remaking a version of this Scary Tales iteration, because I think that would be pretty fun.
I think so too.
And Seamus proxied his in as pass. He is taking one of the dogs for a little walk. So let me dive into the last house. So this was located at Nazerman's. So this hasn't had a house since 2007. This one is over in the New York area, and it's now where the Starbucks is and the Ben and
Gotcha.
Jerry's.
Mhm.
So this one is called Superstitions,
Hmm.
and it is described as explore a hidden warehouse filled with ancient relics and urban legends. Urban legends, we're getting a lot of that lately.
Mhm.
That will have you believing in the supernatural. All right.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm reading a lot here, so I'm just
No,
kind
it's okay.
of.
It
This
sounds
was a
intriguing.
recently discovered warehouse of archaeologist Theodore Raven, an expert in the occult and supernatural. This setting is a terrifying haunted house filled with ancient relics and urban legends. Guests encounter every superstition imaginable, from broken mirrors to black cats, as they plunge deeper and deeper into the superstition nightmare.
Hmm.
So again, we use a voiceover aspect of this, and it's reciting the story of superstitions to you once you get into those rooms. This is cool. I never stumbled upon this before, but the first room featured the chupacabra.
Oh, really?
So with
Huh.
glowing eyes and snake-like tongue. So it's sort of like the
Interesting.
authentic looking one versus the one that we got last year.
Right. I like that.
Cool. The next room was Roswell, New Mexico, with the
Mhm.
big UFO crash scene in there. And there would
Ah.
be a dummy that would attack guests from above. Fun. After that, guests would enter the Bigfoot room. Other rooms represented, like I said, broken mirrors, black cats, which would be meowing and scratching at you, hanging bro slaps, witches, Bloody Mary, a Yeti, and the Hook Man. This
The
must have
Hook
come out over
Man.
around the time that I Know What You Did Last summer.
Ah.
And
That
then there
makes
was a
sense.
tall shadow that says, I see dead people. This must have been right around the Sixth Sense as
This
well.
must have. I was just gonna say.
According to this, there was also a walking under the ladder room, and it was filled with cracks. Step on a crack, you break your mom's back. Interesting. So there was characters like we talked about, some chupacabras, and they, for whatever, they have Jason Voorhees listed as a character. So I'm curious
Had
as
to
to,
throw him in there to give him the extra effect.
Friday the
yeah.
13th, right?
Oh, true. Friday the 13th
Oh, Seamus,
makes
you genius,
sense.
coming in from the cut.
So this is an interesting concept. What do you two think about this one?
It's tough because I feel like this wouldn't be as much of a scary house as it would be more of one of our fun houses, I would think. I feel like some of the characters that they have in it definitely could have that like creepy aspect to it and make it pretty scary, but I feel like it would be more kind of I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to say whimsical, but definitely more of our kind of comedic relief in some scenes, I guess. Like you were saying, there was a Bigfoot room and stuff like that. I don't think I'd be very scared of Bigfoot, but I know maybe he is. I don't know. But just some of the little shticks that they have in it, I feel like are more like kind of gimmicky in the
Yeah.
sense. It's a very gimmicky house. Is the thing I'm looking for.
Yeah.
As for sorry, Seamus, go ahead.
No. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna pass on this too, and probably
Mhm.
say let's just keep this stuff in the past. Let it kind of be what it is. I look at this as like they're starting to get away from at this point, starting to get away from just a random hodgepodge of differing ideas in a house and starting to lean more towards like actual stories. And maybe they haven't quite gotten there yet, but this is one of those things where it's like I don't need to see this again. Like I just it's one of those that's like it's cool it's kind of cool to read about, but do I really want to experience this? Probably not. I mean, I don't know, it's boring in the sense that it's just like, oh, hey, here's a bunch of superstitions people have. Okay, like that doesn't wow me. So I think it's a product of its time, and let's just leave it where it is.
Yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I think that this was them kind of. This was like the growing years of Horror Nights. They were kind of finding their way and not really, and like it's a cool concept where it's like, oh, each room is a superstition. That's fun, but it is. I think you described it as a hodgepodge. It's exactly what that is.
Right.
There's no cohesive storyline other than this is a superstition, and these are really one-off rooms. Interesting concept, but I'm fine with leaving this alone.
Me too. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up HHN 11. So Jamie, you want to take over the next event?
Yes. So we are going to be going over HHN 12 Islands of Fear. So this is the first year that they had this event in Islands of Adventure, which is pretty cool. The first house that I'm going to be going over is a Maximum Carnage, which was located in the Carnage Warehouse, which I think, it was over in the Marvel area. You guys would be interested in this one.
Oh, yes.
So I was gonna reading a little bit more about this. Sorry, let me go to here. Okay, there we go. So venture into the labyrinth-like secret hideout of the malevolent Carnage, an insane criminal with incredible alien powers who's bent on mindless destruction. So in this little article that I was reading here, it said guests would enter the queue for this house to the right of the Incredible Hulk coaster entrance. In the queue, guests would see a large sign featuring the house logo as well as the Lizard Man. The Lizard Man is a carnival performer with lizard tattoos all over their body. Guests would eventually reach the facade, which was the entrance to Carnage's lair. There was villains such as Storm, Scream, Mephisto? Yeah. Mephisto, thank you. I knew you would know it. Appeared throughout the house attempting to slaughter guests. The Punisher, I did not know they did a house on this, honestly. This is so funny. The Punisher, formerly an extremist vigilante, waging a one-man war on criminals, wields a flamethrower at the exit. Infected with Albert Kane's darkness, he joins the Caretaker in Carnage to burn as many people alive as he can. It said one room featured many lasers pointing at guests. A scare actor behind a chain link fence would have a pneumatic device that would make a loud noise, especially when he used it on the wall. A revolving tunnel appeared. And it says the finale was the nuclear reactor with flashing lights and loud sirens. A scare actor with a gas mask would jump out at guests, and another scare actor would appear above them. It also had green lights and barrels labeled gamma radiation. A chainsaw wielding scare actor jumps out at the end and attacks guests as they run out of the house. So, just from me going over this a little bit, I could already say that this really wouldn't be my kind of house. But
Marvel villains.
I think my co-hosts would probably have a different take on it than I would, though. What do you guys think?
So I think I'm going to surprise you. I think that this should be left alone.
What?
I love Marvel.
You would love this.
I love Marvel, but the banana concept of throwing in like the Frogman, Punisher, Venom, and the Caretaker and Scream and Mephisto and Electro, like it's just it's so schlocky. It was probably amazing to experience. Like I would have loved to experienced this house as it was back then, because it would have just been so ridiculous. But to remake it, like I'm looking at some of the costumes and they're pretty much the same costumes you see like the Captain America in. Like it's just not great.
Yeah.
I think it would have been if one of our options was Time Machine, where I could just go back in time and go through this house that year, then I would do that. But I think that this was just fun enough. I think it's just I think it's going to be one of those relics that go down in history, and I'm fine with just kind of leaving it, laying it to rest.
Considering at the time my cynical 14-year-old ass would have laughed at everything in this house, I probably don't want to see it again either. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying if they could do it, because obviously they can't, but if they could really do a legit adult-themed Carnage-specific house, I would totally jump at the chance. Because, like you're right about one thing. Carnage is probably one of my favorite Marvel characters. He is one of the darkest Marvel characters, and really surprising for what Marvel. I mean, obviously, Marvel has done some adult-ish themed things, but to really take the idea of a serial killer being infected by a symbiote that was some dark shit for when they came up with him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if I think there's a lot of cool things they could do with it, but considering they can't at this point with rights and everything else, but if they were like, hey, one of our IP houses is gonna be a fucking like Carnage USA or some sort of like just Carnage story, I would be pumped. As long as they don't include Frogman and all these other random characters.
Yeah.
Like,
Whole random
it's also
Daredevil
again,
villains.
it
Mhm.
seems like it's a product of its time. Like they obviously got the rights to be able to do like a Marvel house, and they just jumped at the chance to do that, and they threw every last thing they could think of into it. You know, it's one of those things where they tried to do too much with not enough space and time. So
Mhm.
they call it Maximum Carnage, but they have all these other random characters in there. It's not really about Carnage then at that point. So
That's what I was thinking. I was like, are all these other characters like
so
related
no,
to him?
so no, my
And this
Oh.
was
this will be a hard
this,
pass for me. Leave it.
this
Leave it.
was
At
the
spoilers.
this was the fall after Spider-Man 1 released, because that was 2002 as well.
Oh, they were hyped then. Everyone was
True.
hyped.
So that was released in May, I believe it was, and
Huh.
this was obviously the fall of 22. So
Mhm.
trying to piggyback off of that.
Yeah, that makes sense then. All right. So, kind of a little play off a house that Nick previously just talked about. I do want to go over this a little bit because reading some of it, I thought it was really crazy that they had some of this in the house. But the next house is Scary Tales 2. So, like I said, I know we discussed it a little bit, the original in the previous from Nick, but I wanted to read some of the descriptions of the characters that they had in this house. So, this one they had Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Little Red Riding Hood, Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, The Three Little Pigs, and Princess and the Pea. So, this last paragraph really stood out to me. It said, according to this, and it has a little link, there was a voiceover of a man reciting nursery rhymes with creepily with a demented twist and eerily music. A bloody white rabbit with a noose tied around his neck appeared in one scene. A princess and Alice also appeared. According to this, there was a scene from The Princess and the Pea. The house also seemed a lot quieter than normal, with no music being heard through most of the house, and many of the rooms were also outside, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then another one that it was on here, it said, near the beginning, guests would walk into a room with many toys and floral wallpaper. A Raggedy Ann doll would jump out from behind the bed. The following hallway had smiling mouths painted on the walls. After that, guests would enter a padded room with dead, decaying lambs hanging from the ceiling. Mary would jump out holding a disemboweled lamb. The next room featured a jester. In one room, a creature, most likely the Cheshire Cat, in parentheses. Where was the good one that I had read about the Three Little Pigs? Sorry, this website that we use is not very quick. Oh, here we go. A pumpkin head would jump out at guests from behind one of these fences, blah, blah, blah. The finale featured the Headless Horseman and the Three Little Pigs. The pigs held chainsaws, in parentheses. So, I thought this sounded a little different than the first one in the sense that I really do like that they included more character diversity, I guess. They had different storylines in there and stuff, which I thought would be fun. So I know that I said I would like to see a rendition of the first one, but after reading this and seeing how they did some of the scenes and stuff like that, I would like to see a remake of this one also. I don't know, I'm a sucker for like the storytale book rhymes and all that kind of stuff, and like a mashup house essentially. So I think this would be really fun to redo, especially since these are all like classic storybook stories that we had read, and also tying in like the Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that, and Snow White. So I think this would be a fun little remake.
So for this one, I think I'm leaning towards pass.
That's okay.
Being that I think, like I said on the last one, I would like to see a remake of more just like focused on just a horror rendition of Alice in Wonderland, because that's
Right.
what that first one was 85% of. And the fact that we get more of these scary tale houses, and they're great. I think I'll just leave this one as is, because I know we're going to come to other ones that I think had a more of a variety of stuff. You know, I don't the Sleepy Hollow, the Three Little Pigs, the Wizard of Oz. That's fun, but I think some of the later ones has the more obscure fairy tales that I liked, and I'm good with leaving these ones as is.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't want to sound boring, but leave this one there. I feel like I'm going to be
it's
pretty
okay.
boring
It's okay.
this event because just by judging the 5 that are on this, but
Yeah, it's nothing that spectacular.
but yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those ones where we're getting scary tales now. Maybe a different form of scary tales, but it's still scary tales. So I'd rather them just keep kind of going in the route they're going and give us new takes on different fairy tales and leave it at that. I wouldn't want them to like bring anything like this back specifically as like a remake of any kind.
All right. For our next house, we have a dinger here. So we have a Fear Factor.
No.
Pass.
Pass.
Oh boy.
Hard pass.
So
You
this
can say
bad
some time.
boy.
You don't have to explain it.
Oh, there's not very. I don't think this was very well recognized because there's not much of a description of it, so I don't got to read much for us. So this was located in the Thunder Falls Terrace, which was right outside before you get into Jurassic Park, kind of at the split where the Dudley Do-Right ride is. So it says, originally in 2002, when Cindy was planned to be the icon for Halloween Horror Nights event that year, there would be a haunted house called Fear Factor that would be based off the TV show of the same name. The house would make guests face various primal fears like bugs in the dark. As for a house description, it said the lights in this house were dimmer than usual. A guest entered the house, they would see a green light that would flash on and off. Rooms featuring snakes, worms, spiders, intestines, and rats were featured, as they are what people feared. The rat lady appeared in this house. One room had walls covered with spiders, and someone with a glass cube on their head with creatures inside appeared. I wonder if they used real stuff. They had to have. The room also had thin strings hanging from the ceiling, simulating actual spider webs. Another pitch black room featured hanging hair covered in goo. In one room, there was a bridge that would randomly drop 2 inches. A fish room also appeared with hanging stuffed fish and a bad smell. The crushing wall effect also may have appeared. There was also a vomit room with a man vomiting. The finale of the house was a series of 4 air guns that scare actors would shoot at guests. So I don't really think. Oh, I got to mention though too. So for the entrance queue of the house, when you would walk in, it said there was a large video screen that was erected there to play Fear Factor clips while Weird Al Yankovic's song "Eat It" played. Which I thought was pretty funny.
Oh God.
Had a home run with this one.
I was gonna say I don't really think we have to discuss this one too much.
HHN Creative is throwing fucking heaters on this year.
Hey, Fear Factor
sequel
was big back then.
Sequel.
Oh my God, I hate you.
No,
just do it.
Please.
I'm here for the chaos.
No.
Put it on the map.
Unless it's them like burning the Fear Factor stage down, I want nothing to do with this.
It's just each room is Joe Rogan berating you.
Right. It's just literally a room full of clips of his podcast. That's really all it is.
All right. Yep. So we all agree that this should have a sequel house, and we're moving on.
All right, next one on the list.
I do not consign that at all.
Me either. It's okay, Seamus.
No, leave that thing alone.
Yeah. So we definitely are at a consensus that one. So I will go on to the next one. So the next house that we have is Project Evolution. This was located in the Triceratops Discovery Trail. So guests would enter the queue next to the Jurassic Park Discovery Center. The queue would go behind the Discovery Center to make its way to the Triceratops Discovery Trail. The facade was a giant set of wooden double doors that led into the first lab. Guests seem to walk through the Triceratops Discovery Trail attraction backwards whilst going through this house, as one of the first things they encounter is a Triceratops. The house was seemingly a lot darker than the other ones that year. Guests would make their way through a ruined Jurassic Park base. Inside, a Triceratops, made to look in distress by strobes, appeared behind a door. Various bloodied up workers begged the guests to run from the carnage going on, including Dr. Burton, the man responsible for these horrors. Guests would encounter a Dilophosaurus containment area with a large hole in it. A scientist would come out of the hole saying they all escaped. I really don't want to keep reading this. This is pretty much just a dinosaur house, which,
Jurassic Park.
yeah, pretty much Jurassic Park house, which I should have known with
Yeah,
the
I
area
think
that they put it in and having it at Islands of Adventure. They had to do
I
some
have a
sort of
feeling that
Jurassic Park-esque
the
theme.
IP laws was a little different back then.
Yeah,
They could
I
just
think so
use
too.
IP for certain things without as
Right.
many there weren't so many hard stops or red tape like there
Yeah.
is nowadays.
Yeah.
But the answer for me is pass.
Mm-hmm.
So I would remake this. I think a Jurassic Park house could work.
You think so?
I do. I think if you based it like almost like the new movies where you're in, or maybe the story is you visit Jurassic Park years after it's been abandoned and you think everything's gone, and then come to find out there's still dinosaurs roaming around. I think you could do some cool puppeteering scares. I think you could do some like fail safes to open locked doors and stuff like that to try to save yourself, and in the end you just die. I think a Jurassic Park house would be fun.
Eh.
I would remake it. I would remake a
no.
Jurassic Park house.
I could see it. I could see it, honestly. It would be kind of cool, but I can't really say that because I'm not a huge. Oh man, I'm gonna get a lot
Stick
of
to
shit.
your guns,
No,
Jamie.
I'm gonna
Pass.
get a lot of shit. I've
Hard
never seen Jurassic
pass.
Park. I've never
Oh,
You've
seen
never
it.
seen Jurassic Park?
Never.
Well, I mean, you're still kind of young. I mean, I can understand why you probably haven't
No,
really
no,
watched
I've
it.
seen
I don't
it.
understand it at all.
I've
I know
seen
what
it
we're watching this week.
Yeah, I've seen a decent amount of shit. I could definitely watch Jurassic Park. I've never seen it though, unfortunately. Never watched it. So dinosaurs have never really been my my cup of tea, for say.
We'll dive into that one this week then.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just gonna say I should probably watch it since I'm over here talking smack about it.
Well, the only one that matters is Jurassic Park 1 anyways. The other ones are all trash, so you
Right,
can
right.
probably take or leave the sequels.
Just like I say about Men in Black 2, I've been on the ride. Why do I need to watch the movie?
Jesus, you have to see Men in Black.
Okay,
You're a
Men in Black
monster.
1, same idea. Men in Black 1 is a great movie. The other sequels can be taken or leave, whatever. But
Yeah.
no, I'm a pass on this again, as I've already
Mhm.
stated. Don't get me wrong. I mean, maybe they could do something with dinosaurs, but
Mhm.
for me, that's kind of like the whole dragon and castle thing. It's
That's
like,
what I was
I'm
gonna
not a
say.
child. Like,
Right.
I don't know. Whatever.
Let it
I
be
think the
noted.
only
Go ahead, Nick.
As one of our comments that we got, what kind of child came up with the spec map? It's basically how I would feel if I saw dinosaurs on it.
like at least for me, with dinosaurs, there's such varying in size.
Yes.
Obviously, if the house was just a bunch of giant T-Rexes
Mhm.
and like iguanodons and stuff like that, it'd be like, oh, whatever. But like you could have like little raptors, which are people size. Like you could play with the sounds. I mean, think of Dinosaur the Ride at Animal Kingdom. That thing's kind of scary.
Mhm.
Like it's dark and it's there's some moments in there that get a little
It's pretty
scary.
when it gives you whiplash. All right. So, for the next house, finally I got something a little good here. My map, my little checklist here wasn't that great for the houses this year. So, the last house that we have is Scream House. So, this was the icon house for the year, which was Caretaker's house. So, let's see to write here. A little description. There's something disturbing about this small town mortuary. The bodies just don't want to stay dead, and they don't want you to leave. The Shady Oak Cemetery has been closed for 10 years after the grisly discovery that the caretakers were using the dearly departed for some unnatural experiments. Run by Dr. Albert Kane and his family, they used the dead corpses as their playthings, sometimes staging elaborate parties in the funeral parlor. Oh man, there's a lot on this bad boy. All right, so I'm just going to get into the queue and the house description here. It says guest would enter the queue in Seuss Landing between One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish, and the Circus McGurkus restaurant. According to this, various entertainers, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's just get to the good stuff. So, for the facade of this house, the burnt shell of a 2-story Victorian manor stands in front of us, framed by trees. Projected on a screen to our left, headlines and photos detailing the grisly findings detail the horrors that took place here. We pass a wagon filled with shrouded bodies on the way onto the porch and into the house. The first room is a small parlor lit by a window along the I cannot talk tonight, along the opposite wall. From behind a room partitioned in the shadowed corner comes a well-dressed member of Kane's family. He holds measuring tape, extending it to us to ensure we fit in the coffins. It spins us and we take a slight U-turn to the left, then another right and down a photo-lined hall with a stained glass window at the end. There was a lot of rooms in this house. This had to at least have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably 12 or 13 different rooms and facades that you could take. So essentially, let me just read the ending of the house just so I could get this more for a description for you guys. So the last part that you would enter basically is the mausoleum, and a zombie appears from behind the door to your right, turning you to the left. You complete U-turn, you finally see him, Albert Kane. He beckons you from the end of the corridor. You're too close before you realize you're looking at a mirror. The caretaker lunges at you from the back right, sending you sprinting forward. From above, a lounge bank startles you. Amid your panic, a final zombie appears to your left and chases you back into the park. So I think I should have read this before, but I think how they took you to this house was that it had different moving parts in the room, essentially, that would kind of make you go different ways. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this is just the Albert Kane story
Kind of his
of him,
origin
his
house.
his
Yeah.
origin house. Yeah, there's just a lot to read on this one. But if you guys are interested in reading it, you could look on the HHN wiki page, and it tells you all about this house. There's probably like almost 2 pages to read of stuff on here, so I don't want to bore you guys because I know we got a lot to talk about still. But it sounds pretty cool. The Shady Oak Cemetery, the funeral home, seeing the caretaker's backstory and stuff like that. The caretaker, especially when I was younger here in Orlando, they always used to do, they still do them sometimes, not as often, but the big billboards for horror nights and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And whenever they had this year for the caretaker, I remember seeing him on the billboard and I was like, dang, that's pretty scary. So I really like seeing his backstory, and I would like to see a remake of this house because I feel like that was one of my first, other than Jack, of course, I feel like the caretaker was one of the icons that I recognized and correlated with Halloween Horror Nights the most. And so I feel like I wish I would have gotten to see more of him, even though I was younger in those years and didn't really get to go to the event back then and stuff like that when I was too young for this one. But so what are you guys thinking about this? Sorry, there wasn't too much more, but there was an operating autopsy room, a viewing room, a freezer, a kitchen, a pantry room, a basement room. So you guys kind of get how it was going.
Yeah. This is this was also the house of the year
I bet.
for that year.
Looks like they worked on it hard.
Yeah, I'm good at remaking this one. I don't know if I want like a sequel. I would just think it would be fun to redo the origin.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna be boring. I think it's another one. I want to leave where it is. Because
Yeah.
I think it's like if you're gonna remake this one, you might as well remake every icon house that they've done.
That's true too.
Like, how do you remake one icon and not the others? And plus, they still do things with the icons, anyways. They're not like kind of left in the past. Like
That's true.
they do new things with them. I'd rather them just do new, like if some eventually down the line do another, all hands on deck type icon house. So I don't know. But yeah, I guess I'm just kind of boring with this year. This year just didn't wow me. There wasn't.
This one wasn't a great year.
Going on.
Damn it, Seamus. I promise you
I'm
it
sorry,
sounded really,
Jamie.
I
You
promise
should've
you
got
it
mine.
sounded, I was just going to say it sounded sick. I just can't describe anything.
No, I think this year had a lot of lackluster houses.
It did, unfortunately.
But it's not one that I'm clamoring for them to redo
Right.
again for 2023 or whatever. But
all right, so let's move on to our and looking at the time of this will be our final year. So we are going to be doing just one event each. So
we're at an hour and 20. So
yeah,
and
do you want to round us out? With 13?
So with HHN 13, I was a young sophomore in high school, but 2003, this is the first year they had 6 houses. So we went from 5 to 6 this year. And allegedly, I don't know if this can be confirmed from anybody or by anybody, but apparently because it was the 13th year, each house had 13 scenes in it.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if that can be confirmed or not by anybody, but that's what I'm reading. But it sounds like the houses, just by the names alone, this was a pretty strong year. But we'll kind of go through each one of them. The first is Ship of Screams. So immediately you just think ship, cruise liner. And this actually was another house based on a ghost ship, similar to the SS Titanic houses that they had in '98. So 5 years later, they did another one. This one, though, they did on the ship called the HMS Friday, and it was located in the Bilgerat barges area of the Islands Park. I didn't realize that apparently the Islands events were linear in nature, where you would kind of go in one way and you'd follow along a certain path to go through each one of the houses, and then you'd be funneled out of the park, because that park obviously doesn't really have so much of a central area.
Right.
It's more, it definitely is kind of like a more around of a lagoon type thing, so you kind of go in one direction. So it's a little different than when they do it in the Universal Orlando Park, but
That's cool.
Either way, I didn't realize that was how this worked. But this one, I'll just kind of read the description, because there's not a whole lot of information about the ship. About the house itself, but it says that this aging cruise liner was found adrift at sea without a soul on board. Now its decks are roamed by a ghostly crew and passengers. Will you be joining them? The HMS Friday set sail in January of 1913, and it was one day found mysteriously adrift in the Atlantic Ocean with not a soul on board. Now parked and slowly decaying in the harbor, passengers and crew of the ship from long ago have returned and are hungry for company. Will you see land again, or will you become a passenger? So it seems like it's another one of those ghost ship type houses. The rooms in this house were themed to be like a ship, like a cruise liner. You go through like the bridge of the ship where like the captain usually is, and they steer it. The lower levels, there were portholes where scare actors would, scare you. There's a control room and that sort of thing, but like it's not a whole lot of description as to what it was. But it again, if we think about it like the Titanic houses, it's you're on a haunted ship. You're out at sea, and you're attacked by ghosts of the crew. Not a whole lot I can really give you other than that. So, I mean, just really quick from my perspective, I would love for them to do some sort of ghost ship house again. I think we got kind of some of that with Dead Man's Pier, but it was less about the ship, more about the pier itself. And I think that you could definitely do something where we're actually on more of a ghost ship again. So I would definitely be down for this to be like sequelized or some sort of remake done for it.
Yeah, I would do a remake in the sense of this and the Titanic. I think if you tapped into like the Bermuda Triangle aspect of a cruise liner, I think that's fun. I think there's a lot of different room opportunities. You go on a modern day cruise ship, and there's just so much options of things to do. I mean, you could have like a little casino scene, you could have a bridge scene, you could have something out in the pool, you could have a dance hall. They have everything on these cruise ships nowadays. So I would love to see a cruise ship based house. So I would say a sequel or remake.
I want to say that I would like to see a remake to this house, because I know we had talked before about the SS Titanic and stuff like that from the previous years, and I wasn't really in for it. But the more you describe it like that, with how you were saying cruise ships now, how they just have so many different aspects and different rooms and different scenes that you could probably do in a house, it would be cool to see some sort of interpretation as a ship into a house like this, a haunted ghost ship of sorts. So I think I'd like to see a remake of this one.
Yeah, so that was that one. And then the next house that they would go through at this event was it's called Funhouse of Fear. So it sounds kind of like your standard fun house. This one was a 3D house, I believe. So they used a lot of like optical illusions, and obviously it was themed around clowns in a lot of way, because clowns are terrifying. But then they also had like carnival freaks, so kind of like that come see the freaks type
Mhm.
stuff that was also involved in this.
The bearded lady, the
Yeah, kind
the
of like
guy with tattoos, the strong man.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like that Funhouse Carney type theme. I guess they would enter some sort of queue by the Dudley Do Right area. Um, Again, there's not a whole lot of description of it, so I really can't give you a super good description about what this house was. But just essentially, think about it like a house full of 3D effects. Clowns kind of were the majority of the scare actors. Various rooms were painted a certain way to disorient them. Obviously, with the 3D effects, it helped kind of do that. If you use a lot of reds and blues and like I guess they say like spirals and stuff, it feels like the room's moving a little bit. But yeah, that's really kind of like the most that's here from this. I guess there is not confirmed, but someone did make a comment somewhere that there may have been Treeks and Foons appearing in this house as scare actors as well. So maybe that was kind of something that was tied into it.
Mhm.
And again, the pictures aren't really descriptive either. A lot of it's just outdoor pictures and a couple clowns and stuff. So
Yeah.
not a whole lot going on here. I'd probably just leave this one in the past. It doesn't. I mean, if
Mhm.
I could maybe knew more about it, I might be more interested to see them revisit it. But to me, like the whole carnival funhouse type thing really doesn't excite me in any way.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously those are scary in their own way, but I don't think it's something that really works as far as like a haunted house these days would go. So I think we can just leave this one in the past. But what do you two think?
So as much as I really like the whole Carney's Funhouse theming for a house and 3D houses particularly as well, I think since we've had renditions of this similar sort in years to come, that I would probably have to pass on this house. I feel like you could only do so much with clowns and with the with the funhouse effect and stuff like that. I feel like it's stuff that's been done pretty much, and I feel like you could just get a little bit repetitive. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I love that whole vibe that those kind of houses bring and stuff like that, but I feel like it's not something that I would need to see again or that I would really want to be like, yeah, I would like to see a remake of this. I would want to go through that. So
Yeah, I'm good with leaving this one in the past. I'm sure we'll revisit some sort of carnival based thing. It happens all the time. The 3D aspect, it's whatever. This house as it is, I'm good with leaving it.
yeah.
All right. So then the next one that they would enter is called Jungle of Doom. Again, didn't do a great job of really describing this, so there's not a whole lot going on, but it kind of sounds exactly what you're thinking. This house was set in the jungle, and it kind of just revolved around like cannibalistic tribes on like a deserted island or a remote island. It literally states the house would be set in a jungle and would feature cannibalistic island natives wearing loincloths. So the entrance, it was, you're standing. If you think about it, almost kind of like the Kong ride now, where
Yeah.
like you have that, like, this mysterious tribe that they haven't met like other civilizations before, and there's skulls and bones and everything lining the walls and stuff because they're cannibals, obviously. Um, and you go through one room and there's cages, and in the cages there's like charred bodies and stuff. Probably their gore house for the most part this year. Like this is like their gory house. Lots of body parts and things like that. But again, there's not a whole lot of description here. So my guess would be a lot of this was just, walking through various jungle scenes where, you might have a bonfire and they're roasting a body or they're doing their like tribal dance or whatever. Probably not as sensitive to today's standards if I was to guess. They probably have to be a little more careful with a house like this nowadays. Obviously because we're 20 years in the future now, but because the scare actors literally listed as tribal women and tribal men.
Yeah, I was just reading that too.
You have to be delicate with that if they
Right.
Headdress creatures. I feel like someone would be offended by this in some way. So I think just because of that, they couldn't really go back to this. But with that said, I think that they may be able to do some sort of cannibal house. I think you could do something along those lines and keep it from being like too over the top or too, go down a certain way where it would offend somebody. I think you could do it in a way that doesn't offend anybody. But how do they do that? I don't know. I'm not creative, so I don't really know. But I could see them maybe doing some sort of remake or sequel to this house and kind of do that cannibal story again, maybe. But other than that, I mean, this specific house, I don't. Do I want it? Probably not. But I could see them finding a way to kind of use this theme in some sort of new take on it.
Yeah.
I'm good with leaving this one as well, but I do like the idea of doing some sort of like just hidden culture of just people completely dissociated with society nowadays and finding us, and I like that concept, but this house as it is, I'd leave it alone.
Yeah, I gotta agree. It would be because it kind of is giving off like the Green Inferno. I know you said we talked about this the other day, Nick. I know you haven't seen it, but it's kind of giving off that cannibalistic tribe that's kind of set off from society and whatnot, and all this kind of stuff that's been there for however long, but doesn't really pique my interest per se as if I would want it to have back as another house. So I think I would probably pass on this one too.
Well, good, because now we're getting into like at least one house that we have some actual description for. And I think that we might all agree on this one. We'll see. But so this next one is Psychoscarapy. We've talked about this one, I think, on other episodes, or maybe we talked about it on the draft episode with RIP. I don't remember if somebody brought this up, but Psychoscarapy is based on not based on. It's about the Shady Brook Rest Home. It's a sanatorium, so kind of getting that insane asylum theme, where the inmates have taken over the facility, and now the place is run down and overrun with freed inmates, which is weird to me because like if you take over the asylum, wouldn't you just escape and leave? Why would you stay there? But I digress. So this one's got a lot more description in it. I don't want to spend too much time reading through all 5 paragraphs of this, but essentially, most of the scare actors, or the majority of the scare actors, were Shady Brook inmates. Some of them were Shady Brook nurses. So they wander around their rooms, murmuring, acting, crazy, screaming, as they say, insane things such as Taflack or Aflack, Franks and Beans, Peter Pan is peanut butter or something like that. But I guess it was unique in the sense that there was less like jump scares in this and more just people acting in strange manners and trying to make you feel weird and uncomfortable. And I'm sure there was some level of like your traditional jump scares, but it's described as not being specifically like all the other houses. They would be, the scare actors would be encouraged to specify certain things about guests walking through, for example, and like try to not target people, but like if a girl was walking through with pigtails, for example, they would sing something like "the pigtails, get the one with the pigtails," and they would be able to kind of like play with that a little bit. But I guess there was various things like I don't know, say inside of a room inside of a machine with spinning walls. I don't know what that means, but a scare actor on the wall that seemed to come to life, and the mirror effect from Scream House the previous year was used in this house. There, I guess, according to this paragraph, after you enter Shady Brook, the relaxing theme to a summer place, whatever that is played. The guests would enter the first room with some sort of receptionist or some nurse who went crazy, who's making jokes at their expense and screaming at them and that sort of thing, squirting guests with quote unquote blood from what we held. There was a TV room where cartoons were playing and stuffed animals and stuff were strewn about, and inmates were in there rocking or being crazy, essentially. There's the infamous bathroom. So apparently the bathroom scene was infamous, where inmates had smeared poop all over the walls, and um, uh, complete with the extremely strong and realistic smell of it that is poop.
Feces.
Uh, inmate was seen using a plunger on one of the toilets. Guests would be sprayed with filthy water, quote unquote. Basically, just gross, nasty stuff. I can see why that was infamous. There was a shock therapy scene, which kind of goes hand in hand with an asylum themed house. So, I guess all in all, in general, this house is very much like, you know, it's an asylum. All the things that would go on in an asylum, it's been taken over by the inmates, and that's kind of what your theme is. Now, I don't know if this had anything to do with Scary Ohio or Cary, Ohio in any way. I think it was just its own thing. I can't really see anything in here that relates to that, so I think it's just kind of its own thing. I guess for me, like, would I want to see it again? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like this has probably been done before. Has this had sequels before in the past? I don't know, but because it does say something here.
So this one was House of the Year, and it did have a bunch of iterations later, and they each kind of had their own theme, so they're similar but different. So they had this one, which was insanity based. They had Psychoscarapy Maximum Madness, which was clowns. Psychoscarapy Home for the Holidays, which was Christmas. And then they had Psychoscarapy Echoes of Shady Brook, which was ghosts. And then they had a scare zone of it, Halloween based. And then they kind of did like a crossover house with Body Collectors.
Okay.
So this has been done since in so it is definitely a saga.
Yeah. Psychoscarapy is a big deal.
So I would
bring it back as a sequel. Maybe do another Psychoscarapy at some point.
I would do a sequel of this and keep that tradition going of a different theme of sorts.
I just want one big house full of bathroom scenes that smell like shit.
No, but I agree too. I would love to see a reiteration of this house. I think it would be awesome. I went the year that they had Psychoscarapy Home for the Holidays. And yet again, as a young child, I was very scared of a lot of things. And outside, for some reason, I was terrified of skeletons. And the Q facade, the banner that they had for the Psychoscarapy, was a big skeleton on it with like a Santa hat. So I was like, oh, I'm definitely not going in that house. And now I regret it to this day. So I would definitely like to see a new reiteration of Psychoscarapy with a different theming. I think it'd be awesome.
All right. So now we get into the heavy hitter for this year, and that is All Night Dying. This one I know we've talked about. This one is a fan favorite. We obviously drafted it on our RIP draft episode with the RIP boys, and I should say boys and girl, because they just hired a new host. But them and our other friends at 365, and I'm forgetting everybody that was on that episode, but either way, if you haven't listened,
it was a big episode. Matt and Hunter were there.
Yeah, go listen to that episode. But so All Night Dying, exactly, what it sounds like. It was based on a drive-in theater. It's a deserted drive-in theater. The people that work for the theater are, they've gone insane. The director's gone insane. I think is this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the icon, like the actual director, or is it?
This is the director's year. Yep.
Okay, so this is the director's year. So this is what his house was. I obviously wasn't at this event, so I didn't know that. But the cool thing about this one is this is kind of like their IP house of yore, in the sense that like they didn't have IP houses necessarily like they do now. They've done it here and there throughout the course of the years, but up to this point, this is the first time they had like actual like real recognizable horror movie characters in a house. Essentially there were 4 different settings: the die-in itself, so the drive-in itself, the Myers house, obviously Michael Myers, Camp Crystal Lake, Jason, and Hell's Furnace, which is the Freddy setting. So it was kind of broken up for all three of those big slasher characters. Again, big long description, not going to read the whole thing, but essentially when you first get there, like pumpkins dangle from strings above you. The Michael Myers theme song is played. Um, he's or you're basically becoming like the star of the latest Halloween movie, essentially, with this. As you push through the pumpkins, you'll see scare actors hiding amongst them. You'll go into a house, you'll walk down a certain hallway, and there were Michaels in the house. So basically, like just your standard Halloween house. Then you're in the woods, which is Camp Crystal Lake, obviously, and you'll see again Jason's and that sort of thing throughout this particular part of the house. And then finally, with the Hells one, you have the Freddy stuff, and you get the 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you sound is being played, and you get obviously Freddy scare actors as well. I guess there were sounds of a chainsaw in the near the end final scene, and they have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I didn't realize was part of this, so I apologize. Apparently, Chainsaw Massacre was also a setting where you're offered, dinner by the Texas Chainsaw family, and this is some more gore. Leatherface is a part of this. More chainsaws, yay, fun. But essentially, as I've stated, this is just more or less
the hits.
the hits. Yeah, they just hit you with all the big major, big major slasher characters. Not a whole lot to really talk about other than that. We all kind of know who those characters are, so that's what this house was based on. I'll let you guys kind of talk about what you think. Obviously, I mean, it's hard for me to really say whether I want something like this again, because it really is nothing but just a bunch of IPs. But do you want to see this sort of thing again, where you have like a bunch of various characters all mashed up into one house, maybe tied together by some overarching theme, like a drive-through or a drive-in theater?
So I would like another sequel of All Night Die-In, but I wouldn't like any of the previously used IPs to be there. Now, I'm torn between saying I want it to be IPs and I want it to be more like Slaughter Cinema, and we go through more scenes of those movies. So I feel like because it's used in each iteration, used IPs, because they do bring this back for All Night Die-In Take 2, where they used Scream, The Ring, Hellraiser, Sounds of the Lambs. I think it would be fun to do another All Night Die-In with just kind of playing the hits of some big houses. You think of like The Exorcist. How many scenes can you pull from that to make a full house? So like, just it'd be fun to kind of hit some classics, see you later, and send it on its way.
Yeah,
I
agree too. I think it would be cool. I wish this house was a more director-based house versus just having the bigger IP names in there and stuff like that, because I really like his backstory, and I remember watching all the commercials for this when they were on TV coming out for this year for the event, and I just thought he was terrifying. I thought it was super cool. So I wish it was kind of more of how those were, with him torturing people for being on and having them be on camera and making his movies and his films. So it would have been cool to see more of originals versus the IPs that they had in it. I think would be cool, if you get what I'm trying to say. But
yeah.
Yep. And then, since we're running out of time, the last house is basically Scream House, just completely redone again for this year. So nothing really different from the previous year. So my answer doesn't change much, even in the past.
Yeah, like I do want to see a revisit of that house, but I don't need a revisit of the revisited.
Exactly.
So this sequel house, being that it's really not much more like added to the original, I'm fine with leaving this iteration of it where it was.
Me too.
Yep. So in classic Fear and Beer fashion, we overpromised. We are sticking with, and I think this
We
is a perfect.
over-delivered. We under-promised and over-delivered.
Yeah, I think this is a kind of perfect way to move forward now that the years are getting expanded, where we will just go 3 years at a time. We each
Yeah.
nail a year, and then
We
we
may have
kind of
to,
get in and get out.
just, 1 year and everybody just take a house because, we're getting to the point where, we have 7
Right.
or 8 houses a year.
Yeah,
This takes quite a while to go through.
it
but-
does. So that was fun. Let's let us know what you think about these past houses of those 3 years. So before we take off quickly, horror movie of the week. Has anybody watched anything?
I did.
What did
Yeah,
you
what-
watch?
It's not new. I had never watched it, and that movie being Brightburn.
Huh.
Happened to find it on Tubi, and I was like, "Oh, I never actually sat
Tubi.
down and watched this movie." Thought it was going to be stupid. Actually, it turned out to be pretty good for the
I've
most
heard
part.
it's good.
It's weird, but
That's James
I mean,
Gunn, I think, too, right?
it is produced by James Gunn.
Huh.
It's made by, I forget the director and the writer's name, but it is produced by the Gunns. So yeah, it's kind of in their wheelhouse. But it's exactly what you think it is when someone tells you it's a movie about Superman gone bad. I mean, really what it comes down to. But it's pretty good. Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out.
Nice. I spent my time watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3 twice, so I haven't really tapped into much horror this week.
Would you say
I
that
s-
movie is worth watching?
Yes,
Yes.
100 times over. I swear I watched something in the horror realm, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this, and then I just completely blanked on what I had watched this week. But that's what I got. Jamie, you watched something?
Yeah,
I'm sure you have.
I did actually. I had to do a little research for my my writing that I do, but I watched a film called Oregon Trail, not the Oregon Trail, Oregon Trail. So essentially, this came out April 14th in theaters for about a day, but it is about to be released on digital May 12th, so you could watch it on streaming. But it is a horror western film, which I feel like horror westerns are kind of a hit or miss for me sometimes, but I actually really enjoyed this. Follows a family going along the Oregon Trail that run into some murderous bandits along their way and whatnot. I don't want to give away too much because I actually really enjoyed it and thought it was good. So if you guys see that pop up and want to try to give it a watch for when it comes out, I definitely recommend it if you're into horror western movies. I think it's really good.
I will definitely do that.
I was gonna say, Seamus, I think you'll like it. Actually, it was really good.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this week. We will be back, I'm sure, shortly because announcements, like I said, are imminent. The social media platforms of Horror Nights have been very active as of late, so that's always a good sign for us. We are closing in on that date where they sort of start announcing a house, usually that mid to late May. So we are just kind of waiting on pins and needles. But that about wraps it up, I think. Any closing thoughts from anybody? I think we've kind of reached our limit here.
I think so too.
Nope. Just let's go. Horror Nights,
Yep.
start telling us some stuff, please.
I know. We need some stuff to
Right.
talk
The
about.
animals are chomping at the bit to hear some stuff. So let's go.
All right. Well, until next time, this is Nick.
This is Seamus.
This is Jamie.
Happy haunts.
It's cursed. Cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.